joined some bad witches in Coven and some dirty freaks in Freak Show, checked into the hotel, and hung out with some weird hillbillies in Roanoke, joined a cult, made it to the end of the world, an apocalypse, and now we're taking you back to 1984. Stay tuned. The AfterBuzz TV 1984 preview show starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AfterBuzz TV American Horror Story After Show.
I cannot believe this is happening. We're going back,
yes.
Right? I'm ready for it.
We are going back to 1984. This is our preview show, a little warm-up before tomorrow's premiere for the 9th season of American Horror Story 1984. I am your host, Elena Jordan, and I am so excited because this season I am going to be joined by a phenomenal panel, one of which is here right now.
Hey.
A man who knows so much about horror movies. It is insane. My fellow horror aficionado, the person I call first for all of my horror wants and needs.
Yes,
Ollie Drennan, a.k.a. Ollie Dreamer.
Oh, you could have gone on more, Elena.
I could.
But
The dream is a nightmare with Freddy Krueger.
I owe it all to you. I really do owe it all to you. You're the queen of horror, honestly.
Yeah.
At AfterBuzz TV. And I learned from the best. So I owe everything to you, Elena. And I'm so excited to be here with you. Literally, this season is going to be jaw-dropping. And I'm so excited that it's the 80s. It's what we've been waiting for.
I'm so excited. I am so excited. And also, Kayla Renee will be joining us as well. She'll be back from last season. I have missed her, so very happy to have her here. And Alexa Capiello as well, who I'm very excited to be joining too. When we were talking about who should kind of join and fill in the cast here, the two people that I thought of first were you and Alexa. So I'm very excited to have our full panel together. And I'm also really excited to have you here to talk about
I'm excited to be with
this
all of y'all.
incredible show. Yeah! So we're going to be talking about not only what we think is going to potentially be happening in this upcoming season, 1984, what we've seen in the trailer so far, but also a look back at some of the other seasons and a look at the cast for who is going to be returning versus some new players that we have coming in as well. So be sure to stick around for the entire show. But just kind of right off the bat, what do you feel about this theme, 1984, as compared to all of the other themes that we've had for American Horror Story so far?
I feel like for a while we've kind of delved into so much paranormal stuff. And I think 1984 is the perfect setting to kind of step away from that paranormal, which I love. I'm totally here for it. Don't get me wrong. But I think we need more of a grounded setting. And it's something we've never really played before. We've had flashbacks in the 80s with, or in the 90s even with AHS. But I think having a setting completely dedicated to Camp Redwood as what the setting's going to be, I'm super excited. And I feel like we're going to have even flashbacks to maybe the 70s or the 60s of the backstory of Camp Redwood. So I'm super excited about that. And it's just been long overdue. Like, come on, we got to get our 80s slasher.
Multiple decades. I would be very into that.
And I'm excited to see what kind of real life stories and myth they're going to implement. I know that's predictions, but I'm just so stoked with it.
Do you think that it's blood redwood? Is that why it's redwood?
Blood.
Sure, why not?
I mean, maybe it's the blood from your dress. I don't know.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, okay.
Camp Blood Redwood.
All right, I'm gonna keep my eye on you. I'm kind of scared. Where are our co-hosts? Did you have something to do with their disappearances?
Ooh. It's why we had to get a couple new co-hosts this season. I mean, I'm not.
Gotcha.
not trying to give myself away here. I'm not trying to give myself away.
But what about you? What are you excited for about this season?
I loved Scream Queens. I absolutely adored it. And I feel like part of the reason that I liked it so much was all of the illusions that then after Scream Queens started, I feel like Ryan Murphy started incorporating more of into American Horror Story. And so I feel like this is going to be really the ultimate accumulation of that. Like we're going to see just the full amalgamation of all of the different references. I think it's just going to be reference on top of reference and just the most ridiculous period clothes ever. I mean, we've seen like throughout the multiple trailers, we have the camping gear, but they're also like jazzercise enthusiasts that are going. So we have to have the whole 80s Barbie workout look and the teased up hair, which may or may not be making an appearance on our panel.
I was just about to say.
But yeah, so I'm really excited to see kind of what I think is going to be a very different season, especially because Apocalypse really rounded out so much of the previous seasons where it could have just ended there and been a really solid end. I feel like now is the chance to somewhat reboot, and I think that this will be, no pun intended, even though 100% pun intended, a campier version of the American Horror Stories that we've seen in the past.
Right. And I think that's, you brought up Scream Queens, which was so campy to the max.
Was so, like, the campy, and that's why I loved it. It was just so absurd and over the top.
And oh my gosh, Gus Kenworthy. Oh my God, I'm a fan. Just saying. I just wanted to say that. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm like, then you should be pretty excited because we do have some new. Do we want to just go ahead now and talk a little bit about the cast, about this upcoming season?
Why not?
Let's talk about this season first, and then we'll talk a little bit about older seasons. And then how it might tie in. Some predictions for this season. So let's talk about some cast members. We have, a lot of people who have, because there's so many seasons, we could go through and list a full... I'll put in the comments like a link to a wiki article that'll have it all charted out for you a little easier. But so many recurring cast members that we've seen throughout the years. However, while we do have certain people that are going to be confirmed, Emma Roberts, of course, is going to be, there is Brooke, Gus Kenworthy.
Ooh, I can't
talk about, jazzercise Barbie. He's
newbie.
Kenworthy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so excited. Pun of the week, I'm sure, or puns of the week. I'm so excited to hear
I'm actually
them.
pretty proud of that one. I'm not going to lie. They don't grow on trees, but they might grow on ferns, like Cody fern.
Oh my gosh.
No, that one was awful. I apologize.
I mean, I appreciate it though.
But yeah, Cody Fern is going to be here. Billy Lord, love her. Leslie Grossman will be back. Very excited about that. Now there is going to be, John Carroll Lynch is going to be back. He was Twisty in Freak Show, so that'll be pretty cool. There are going to be some new additions too. So, we will see a bunch of different cast members. Matthew Morrison, who we know from Glee. Deron Horton from Dear White People. Angelica Ross from Pose.
Who I love. So
very excited. And Zach Villa from Shameless too. Unfortunately, that means we also are going to have some people who are not returning. Jessica Lange still will not be a part of the show. I think she's over it. I think she's pretty much over it. Anybody who thought like, oh, maybe she'll be back now. It's like, no, I think that one's done.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think she kind of did her swan song last season.
Yeah.
And that was just what we needed.
I think so too. It's not going to be a Misty Day scenario. She is not going to keep coming back. Like it's done and done. But the one that is really going to just rip my heart out. There's actually two that are going to rip my heart out. Sarah Paulson and Evan Peters.
Really?
Did you know this?
Yes. I heard that there's rumors that Sarah Paulson is actually going to have a small part at the end of the season, possibly.
She's going to be potentially confirmed for a very, very, tiny cameo. Which
awesome. Great.
But it's great, I guess. But it also means she can't do any press because she's going to be in this tiny little bit. I'm like, come on!
But in a way, it's like the silver lining is that it's giving room for new talent. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. And Evan Peters, he has so much work going on for him, and props to him. But just think of it this way. If anyone's sad, Evan Peters, we didn't know Evan Peters really until American Horror Story. And now that other people can kind of go on to American Horror Story 1984 and really become, I don't know, the next Evan Peters. You're super fan of Evan Peters, aren't you?
I really am. I really am a super fan. He is always my favorite. I specifically wait for his characters. And there are certain characters I feel like they add only because they know that he can play them so well, because he is so ridiculously talented. And I have just been such a fan of all of his work. So to not have him in it, I am not going to lie, that is a pretty rough blow for me personally.
Well, I think that's me with Sarah Paulson. I mean, we'll get her a little bit probably, but I'm going to miss her for sure.
Shout out to, we'll just go ahead and say all the ones that Evan Peters has been in the past, because he's not going to be in this one. So, R.I.P. to Evan Peters' face on screen for American Horror Stories getting murdered repeatedly. But he was Tate Langdon, Kit Walker, Kyle Spencer, Jimmy Darling, James Patrick Marsh, Edward Philip Mott, Rory Monahan, Kai Anderson, and of course, Mr. Gallant, James Patrick March, Tate Langdon, and Jeff Feister, all in Apocalypse as well.
R.I.P.
And a whole lot of other secondary characters, too.
He needs a vacation. Just let him.
Maybe I'll break. I'll give him that. I'll say, here's the deal, though. His ex is still on the show, Emma Roberts. And isn't she and Gus together now?
No, Gus is gay.
Oh, is he? Yes, okay, good. That makes me feel better then. That makes me feel a lot better.
I didn't know that Emma and...
They're not together anymore. Whoa. So I feel like that's probably part of it, is that they don't want to... Well, make sure that I'm not making this up, because I just definitely
Wow, that's crazy. Now I want to know the tea. What's the tea on that, Emma?
I feel like I'm going to double check right now.
They're actors. Come on. Ryan Murphy's not stupid. He's going to get his boy back, Evan. Because Evan was here before Emma. Let's be real.
Yeah, dude, they split in March. They split after 7 years together, and they're not together. So if that's around the time in March that they split, that they were probably casting for this, then it makes sense that he was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit out. I don't feel like doing this one. No, thank you. Billy Eichner also said that he is not going to be returning in any capacity via tweet.
Okay.
Somebody said they really wanted to see him because his performance in Cult was blank phenomenal, and I blank agree. But Billy replied, "Thank you. I can't do AHS this year, but boy, oh boy, I had a blast, and I love all those crazy kids a lot. Little heart."
Aw.
So that's sweet, Bill.
I feel like, I know we're jumping ahead, but maybe the 10th season, we're going to have so many returns. It's going to be the decade of AHS. So
I feel like everyone's going to be back for the it's like 10 year. It's like, come on, everybody's coming back.
It looks like we're going to have a smaller cast this season, and maybe that's a good thing. We're going to get to expand some of these characters and really focus on them, because sometimes in seasons they're juggling way too much, and it's great to have such an ensemble cast, but maybe having a smaller cast this particular season, especially having this awesome setting, is going to be a good thing.
I mean, I also hope that there's probably a lot of unannounced cast that is going to be joining too. Guests appearing. The only thing is, and we'll talk about the actual premise of it, is that the show itself is set at Camp Redwood. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the typical summer camp thing where a group of kids go out to the woods to a camp, and then they get murdered. Right. It's the whole, Jason...
Mm-hmm. Camp Sleepaway.
Yeah, it's Camp Crystal Lake, but Camp Redwood instead of Camp Crystal Lake instead type deal.
How long is it going to be until everyone's dead?
Yeah, so I'm like, for a movie, that's great. And yeah, they made a whole lot of Friday the 13th movies. Like, they just kind of, like, kept making them. And then, like, same with Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy. Like, I mean, they kept making them. So it's like, yes, in some ways I could see it going on to a certain extent. But if you have a limited cast, unless it's going to be showing an additional group of summer camp kids coming in later, I just don't want it to pull a Roanoke. Because to me, that was my least favorite season, because I feel like they ran out of material, and when it like flipped the third time, I think it should have ended. Like, as soon as they incorporated like the social media, like kids are in here walking around aspect, I was like, you ran out of characters to kill, and now you're just doing anything you can to get somebody into this area. And the problem was because they were secluded in the woods. So now this one poses the same issue. So I'm wondering how they're going to circumvent that in a more creative way.
Right. Because it can't be like exactly what they did with Roanoke, of having this be like a movie, and then the actors are like suffer some similar fate, as opposed to getting slashed. And and it's like we're seeing this character, Mr. Jingles. It's like he's apparently this psychotic maniac, and that's almost a little bit too, like, maybe he's a red herring, you know, maybe he's a sympathetic villain, you know, it almost seems too black and white. So what's the gray area that we're going to explore in this season?
Because it's like, it can't just all be references. There has to be a story, and there has to be enough people to kill that it's still a slasher.
And it's going to be, what, 10 episodes?
I mean, they typically are at least 10 episodes.
Last season
so
was
I'm
10,
like,
or?
I'm thinking this one, honestly, should be like 8.
Unless this is going to have hella flashbacks. But even then, I don't think that's
even then, I'm like, I don't know. Because it's like...
So
a lot of flash forwards, I'm assuming, because if they have it like a period piece where everybody would be grown now, and it's supposed to be kind of cashing in on that nostalgia. Now, what do you think that it is about the nostalgia of the mid 80s right now, especially mid 80s horror, when we have Stranger Things, we have It. We have so many different things that are set in this time period that is now, and I'm asking you this, I also asked this to teach Grant, who plays Henry Bowers, and the adult Henry Bowers in It Chapter 2, when I interviewed him. And so I want to see what your answer is, then I'll tell you what he said.
Okay. Honestly, I think, well, first off, the fashion, hello, 80s, come on. It's so nostalgic. It's coming back in fashion today in 2019, but I think a lot of it is, we like to go back to the nostalgia, not only because of the aesthetic, but also, I mean, look at the horror back in the day. There was no technology. And as much as we love technology, social media, whatnot, I think it, in a way, disrupts the horror genre a little bit. So I think going back to the 80s, where technology wasn't as advanced, there's something very special and vulnerable in those storylines and in those characters that are trapped, whatever they're being killed, murdered, whatnot. And that's why I think you and I and fans around the world of horror just really love the 80s and even the 90s. I mean, I think the 90s is different because with Scream, I'm rambling, completely changed the game of technology in real life with having caller ID all of a sudden. But that wasn't in the 80s. Hello. You know, there was no caller ID. There was no social media. Everyone was so vulnerable back in the day.
In the 80s, in the woods, especially. It's like the most secluded, the most isolated, this lack of communication.
No Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi. Even if there was Wi-Fi in the 80s, you wouldn't get it in Camp Redwood. So... Yeah, I think you're totally right. He said basically a similar thing, and about how...
I stole his answer. I'm kidding.
Well, I also think like part of it too is that it gives us kind of a tangible monster for this intangible situation that a lot of people feel that they're in with being in an economic situation that isn't ideal, and having grown up in the 80s... and seeing all of these things, it's that sense of nostalgia, and then being able to then attribute something that is, you know, like it's the whole idea of being able to fight a dragon, to make it something more attainable because it is a tangible quest type deal. So that's why I'm excited too, that I'm hoping that they're going to incorporate a lot of mid-80s Hades and 80s, both
the
of
biggest
them.
twist.
Yeah, what the hell, man? Icons into this season.
Right.
So, would you like to go through a list of some of these slasher movies that came out specifically in 1984?
Yes, please. This is what I've been waiting for, Elena.
This is it. And we will actually keep this checklist throughout the show. And because these are specifically ones that came out in 1984, we'll make notes when we see references to these.
So our checklist in the checklist.
Yeah, so this is like, and we're not like condoning drinking, but we like to be hydrated. We have our water. So if you would like to stay hydrated and keep your own checklist, and maybe throughout the season as we check off, you can also,
if you're of age. And if you aren't, maybe caffeine, maybe have a coffee.
Just
espresso shot.
water. Only the Russian water to check off.
I love it. I'm excited. Please, without further ado.
The Barbaric Beast of Boggy Creek Part 2. The classic.
Oh, yes. My favorite.
A lot of these I'm going to have to go back and watch because I'm like, I don't know what this is. Bloodsuckers from Outer Space.
Oh.
Into this. Bog.
Bog.
Yeah. Bog.
Just bog?
Bog.
Oh. Bog.
Bog.
I just like saying that.
Bog. It's scary. Bog. The Don Kiesler classic Bog, obviously.
Right.
And then Chud. CHUD. Children of the Corn.
Yes.
As well. There you go.
There we go.
Now we're into it. The Company of Wolves. Deadly Intruder. Don't Open Till Christmas. Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Ooh.
And because it's the final chapter, that makes me think, which also is like, really? In 1984, that was the final chapter?
No.
Hilarious. Hilarious. You thought you were going to end it then. We're like, new movie coming now, 2019. This is the Jaws 19 that you saw in Back to the Future. You didn't know that it was actually Friday the 13th. But it would make sense because we see those on the calendar a lot more. I apologize. So
No, you just leave me speechless a lot.
So I'm thinking because it's the final chapter, we're also going to see a lot of things from the previous movies. So we'll kind of lump all of the Friday the 13th movies, I think, kind of together.
Right.
But specifically, the final chapter came out. Gremlins.
Oh my gosh, there we go.
Gremlins.
If I don't see Gizmo running around, trying to save the day in a little Barbie car, then this is not going to be a good season.
I mean, I'm just saying there has to be some sort of Gremlins reference. If there's something that has to like not be fed after midnight, it can't get wet, like some sort of Gremlins reference.
Right.
I feel certain. Do you know Howie Mandel was the voice of Gizmo?
Really?
In Gremlins?
What?
Yeah. I interviewed him too. You can watch the interview on AfterBuzz TV.
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, and we were talking about America's Got Talent, and I got him to say, watch America's Got Talent as Gizmo, because he was the voice of Gizmo.
Oh my God.
Crazy small world. Hunters of the Night. The Initiation, Innocent Prey, Invitation to Hell, Wes Craven's.
Ooh.
Invitation to Hell. Night of the Comet, which I'm interested to see. Sure. Nightmare on Elm Street.
There we go.
2, yeah. Yeah.
2? Oh my gosh.
No. Just Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm saying also.
I was like,
Nightmare on Elm Street also, not the second Nightmare on Elm Street, it is confusing the way that I phrased it. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
There are also numerous sequels.
I'm glad I yelled
that
at you.
you specified, yes,
Like,
because I would have just been right off the rails. Razorback, Satan's Bride, Scream for Help, The Sea Serpent, Silent Madness, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Okay.
Which is ridiculous and dope. I'm feeling like because there was 2 slasher Christmas movies.
Right.
I think there's going to be some sort of Christmas something potentially. Splatter University. I mean, come on. Strangler versus Strangler, Superstition, The Tenant, Terror in the Isles, and The Toxic Avenger.
All right.
So all of those were the actual slasher movies of 1984.
Wow.
We will see which of them are referenced throughout the season. And if you pick up on some references that we missed, be sure to put them in the comments as well, and we'll shout you out. And cheers our water to you, which legitimately is water here.
Yeah, water.
But you at home, don't have to drive if you're in your homes and you're of age, so drink what you will.
I'll bring my flask that night, or those Wednesday nights. I'll bring my flask candy.
Cheers, do it.
Can't wait.
Do it.
Can't wait.
This is not a beer. This is an energy drink. So when I move to
She
this...
She says that, people, but, you know, it's not. It's not.
You know, whatever's clever. So what do you hope that they incorporate this season into American Horror Story 1984, specifically that we may have kind of alluded to in previous seasons that you want to see circle back, or some brand new elements that you want to see incorporated that we might not seen before?
Well, clearly, I think this season's already looking like a complete red herring, but there's got to be something that we're missing. They're not showing us. They're already so like secretive about the production of AHS like every single year. But you know what? You just brought this to my attention of like what they have kind of like hinted over or like not explored back was an asylum, the aliens. Do you remember
the alien story is something that is
never
notoriously,
and it's
fans have been pissed about this, that it was like brought up and it was like,
I was never that interested in the whole alien story, but
I was, because I was like, are those alien kids? Are these alien babies? What's the deal with the alien babies? And then I thought that it was going to circle back with Apocalypse, and some people thought that it did, but it was like never explained. Yeah.
And I was saying like, oh, maybe not. Maybe keep this like a paranormal free season, but you just brought that to my attention. Like, oh yeah, the aliens storyline.
Aliens in the woods.
What about
it
you?
Would make sense.
Do you have anything that you would like to explore or something new?
I mean, now I want aliens.
Right?
Just because I'm thinking about, like, being from Alabama, the times that I've gone camping and there were wild cows, I'm like, those are the cows that aliens probe. That's it. Like, they're full circle.
I'm sure you've seen them, like, get sucked up in the UFOs.
Just right up.
Right? During the camping trip. That made a very memorable camping trip for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of different elements that I feel like this is some sort of red herring, kind of like how Roanoke had, like, a psych out.
Right.
But I'm hoping that this does a, like, one-off psych out, because I feel like where Roanoke lost us was with the third element, when it was My Roanoke Nightmare, and then they were like, oh, psych out, that was like the thing for this, and now we're actually going back.
Right.
You know, it was fine, but then when it was the whole element of then, and I love Taysa Thompson, but like, Taysa Farmiga, having her, Farmiga, having her come back. But it just didn't make any sense to me, where I was like, why is she here right now? So like, I hope that it doesn't get to the point that they kind of lose the thread. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that they actually have written the entire season and that they're doing the whole season all together, because it seems like they tend to start strong and then sometimes fizzle out.
Which I agree.
So that's the only kind of negative that I have with this show, is that sometimes it starts out stronger than it ends. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see a really, really strong finale, that the whole season is based around this finale that we're not expecting.
Right.
So I'm hoping this is the season.
And last thing I'll say is that maybe the first half is the camp, and then second half will have a different setting, still in the same year of 1984, but maybe these characters leave the camp and maybe they have some kind of, I don't know, slasher within like a neighborhood or something along the lines of that. So it's not completely a camp setting for the entire season. Or it's
like kind of like It, where they're grown up and then it's like this follows them throughout their whole life, and then now as adults are dealing with it.
Ooh, 2004. HS 2004, 20 years later, right? Did I do math right? I don't know if I did. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Did 20,
I? Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know. I'm not
14.
I'm not a math major.
2014. I don't know. Anyway. We're here to talk about words and English things and slasher movies.
I think that was right. Yeah.
Well, I know. I'm like, if you want to talk about something legit killer to me, I'm like, talk about math. I'm like, ugh, jeez. No offense to anybody out there who's a mathematician. We need you. You're amazing. STEM is awesome. I just suck at it. So, I feel like we need to start kind of wrapping up here a little bit, but any particular things this season that you're really looking forward to and that you're hoping that we see from certain characters or certain actors?
Oh, well, don't ask me that because my answer is just going to be Gus with his shirt off, Elena. No, but I'm hoping that some of these characters really like aren't like the typical archetypes. I know like, yeah, we want the nerd, the sexy jock, but maybe they expand them and kind of like flip the switch on some of these characters. But also, you know, who doesn't want to see an amazing death scene this season? I want some amazing creative 80s inspired deaths.
I think we're going to see some really intense creative deaths. I mean, we saw with Friday the 13th some like intense crazy things. And I'm really hoping that we see recreated in this one.
Sleeping bag.
Sleeping bag. Yeah, I think definitely we're going to have that recreated. I feel probably shot for shot. Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of elements incorporated. I love Billie Lourd a lot. I feel like with Scream Queens especially, and with what we've seen from American Horror Story, she nails the camp horror vibe to a T. So I really, really want to see her get to spread her wings and stretch her acting muscles a little bit more, and then see those muscles get hacked to bits.
Exactly.
With some sinew.
And I will say, we don't know some of these characters' names, so maybe these characters are other characters in other seasons of, you know, younger versions of other seasons.
That's true. They could be tied in. There typically are tie-ins. This season, so far, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a tie-in, but, I mean, there's always little references, so we'll keep an eye out for those, too. In the meantime, before we come back tomorrow... Again, join us tomorrow for the very first episode of the AfterBuzz TV American Horror Story 1984 After Show. Until then, where can everybody keep up with you?
Hey guys, it's Ollie Drennan. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ollie Dreamer. Where can we find you, Elena?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Elena Jordan and on Instagram at Elena J. Jordan. And you can catch me interviewing all of your favorite celebrities at MEA Worldwide. That's MEAWW.com. And you can catch us here again tomorrow for the HS After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. We'll be back with Kayla Renee and Alexa Capiello as well. See you then.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.